Good evening, everyone, and welcome to TriVersity Talk. I am Steven Bloomer-Teague.
And I am Wendy Stewart Kaplan. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday night, pre-Halloween. Ooh.
I know, I feel bewitched right now. I wasn't told we were dressing in costume. Otherwise,
we weren't. I picked this up at a thrift store the other day. It was like only $5. And I've been wearing it. Why have I been wearing it when I have a whole closet full of costumes? My closet is so jammed. This is pathetic. I have no idea what I'm wearing to the Halloween party. I have no idea what I'm wearing on actual Halloween. It takes a while to go through like all your stuff. These are the problems that people like me have. Too many costumes, too little time to wear them.
Well, where would be a good place to wear a costume and has something to do with TriVersity?
Oh, well, I am going to answer that question. But first, Steven, do I win something if I answer it? I'm feeling witchy.
My undying love and affection.
Oh, my God. Well,
which you already have. So no, you don't.
Well, since you said that, we are having the TriVersity Ball for All, and that is this Saturday night, October 30th. We are going to have incredible talent, Mimi Sashimi, and we have a wonderful DJ, and of course, all of us from TriVersity. And the best part is this is our first event partnering with Catskill Pride. So it's, how we feel, the more the merrier. It'll be great.
Absolutely. And if you want some more information on that event, just head to TriVersityCenter.org/Halloween 2021. We'd love to have you at our Ball for All. So
yes. And tell people how easy it is, because, there are people that are gun shy about ordering tickets online. I have to tell you all, I'm not great at anything online, but we have made it so easy with our new website designed by Philip Sullivan. It is a breeze. You just hit a button. It comes up clear as about. Everything's big. You don't even need your glasses. I love that he made everything big. So we've made it easy for you. And also, Steven, I believe you said we are in circumstances going to take cash at the door for people. Yeah?
Yeah, we are most certainly willing to take cash at the door. The one thing is we are requiring proof of vaccine.
Yes.
And if you buy your ticket online, you're given a nice little reminder. If you're just bringing cash to the door, don't forget, because we have someone who will turn people away. That is not my specialty, but other people were born for it. So
that's right. We have the vaccination police right here at our Ball for All. So bring your vaccine proof. So I have to discuss one thing that's a little off topic of TriVersity, but I want to share with everybody. We went on a fabulous ghost tour of Port Jervis, New York, and we really had a great time hearing about the fact that there were so many ghosts there and so many brothels. Because what I came to conclude from that, Steven, is where you have brothels, you have ghosts. You have people shooting each other. You have people jumping out of windows, the whole 9 yards. And it was scary. I was scared. So that was every year we do a ghost tour. So I had a great time on that one. I just wanted everybody to know that,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I love a good ghost tour. So
who doesn't love a good ghost tour? So, well, we don't have a ghost coming on tonight. We have somebody better than a ghost. Let's all have a Kiki, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, our guest is Patrick Dunn, also known as Kiki Lucia. We first connected at the Imperial Court event fundraiser for Tyler Clemente. And I have to tell you, Kiki Lucia, an incredible performer. She walked in and like, oh my God, this girl is just too gorgeous. We're talking flawless costume, flawless makeup. And then she gets up and does her thing. And she was absolutely fantastic. But you know what the real surprise was? I meet her coming out of the bathroom like 45 minutes later. She's getting ready to leave. Fresh face, the most handsome guy, Patrick Dunn. And then I come to find out all the work that Patrick Dunn does for LGBTQ advocacy and fundraising. So let us welcome Kiki Lucia, Patrick Dunn.
Hello, hello, hello. What an intro. What an intro.
Oh, was that good? There's a lot to cover with you.
I like to think of myself as multifaceted.
You are multifaceted, you're multitasking. And, it's just, I love the picture that we use to advertise you. We always try and get really great pictures. And of course, people that do drag have incredible pictures because that's how you need to advertise yourself. But the thing I loved about yours was the duality. Patrick Dunn was on one side and Kiki Lucia was on the other. Yeah.
Every day is
So we're not doing this yet. I'm so sorry.
That's fine because we were talking about duality.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry.
And then we have Kiki Lucia, and that is the beauty of live stream. It's
exactly.
It is. It's the spontaneity.
My face got more red than it already was when we started. So
there you go. And everybody gets to see who you are up front instead of keeping them guessing. We like to lay it out here. So welcome to the show. I have to ask you, how long have you been doing drag for?
So it's a complicated question to answer. So I started hanging out with drag queens and helping them backstage when I was 18. And then by 2021, I was actually helping people get ready and helping them draw their boobs on, and gave birth to my first drag child in a sense, which was my best friend, John. I helped him get into drag. Utilizing my theater background, I figured out how to do makeup for him and stuff. And then, but I didn't actually start putting it on myself until the week before my 30th birthday.
So I find that really interesting. It was always a bridesmaid, but never a bride.
Exactly. I was the one carrying the bags and making everybody else look beautiful. And I knew everyone in the drag scene because I was known as Bella's friend that goes to all the gigs and helps her. But then I was also helping everyone backstage because that's what I did. I mean, some of my best drag friends, I helped put their ass pads in and all this other stuff for years, long before I ever did it. And
we all have to start with ass pads, Patrick.
Except for me, I have enough ass that I don't ever need an ass pad. But yeah, so the week before my 30th birthday, I was oh, I really want to just do it just to do it and take it off my bucket list. And then I've done it. And so I messaged the Robin Banks from the Robin Banks Show and said, hey girl, I've known you for years. Can I jump in and do a number at your show? It's the week before my birthday, blah, 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 blah. So she said, sure. And said, show up and do a full set. And for her, a full set was 4 performances. Wow. So my first time in drag, I did 4 performances.
And so how did you, that's a lot. How did you get yourself ready? Did you were you secretly practicing in the bathroom in front of the mirror prior to that?
I definitely did a lot of YouTube videos because I wanted to come out and look good. And I looked okay. Sort of. I had
those YouTube how-to videos.
I did. I watched a lot of Miss Fame videos because that was who I based my face off of originally.
Okay.
And then, I had a full mental breakdown 30 minutes before we were supposed to leave because it did not look the way I wanted it to look. And Bella came in and just beat my face as much as she could in 30 minutes. And then we went to the bar and I performed 4 numbers and got paid. So, and then never took it off.
This was history. You were launched. Wow.
Yeah. And actually my second ever performance was for the Imperial Court of Connecticut. I performed at Dragapalooza, the very first Dragapalooza, which is Connecticut's largest charity drag show. And that was my second time ever in drag. And then it just kind of stuck.
So Amazing.
I have a question because I hear this term a lot, and I think other people hear it. What is the imperial court?
So the Imperial Sovereign Court, the International Court System is a 501c3 international nonprofit organization and collection of other organizations that essentially do good in the community. And they do that primarily through raising money and giving it back. There's 80 chapters across Canada, Mexico, and the United States. In Connecticut, where our chapter is called the Imperial Sovereign Court of all Connecticut. We were originally the Nutmeg Court back in the 90s, and then we transformed in 2000 to becoming the Imperial Court of Connecticut. And collectively, over the last 20 years, we've raised somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 and given it back to the community.
It's really quite incredible. I'm glad Steven started with this because everyone asks me what's the Imperial Court, and even I'm so new. I really don't understand how everything works. It's based on like the court system in the UK.
Yeah, what we say in Connecticut, or at least a lot of us say in Connecticut, is we basically monarch role play. So we role play as like the British. Like if Bridgerton could be a charity event, that's what we do every week. Basically. Oh
my God, that's so well put. I get it.
And we just it's campy and fun and all of it. It's like our current empress, my very good friend Miss Frank. She always says it's only some place in the Imperial Court that someone can look like me and be called an empress. It's fun. It's exciting. I joined the court because for me, what I think the court does is magic, right? There is no one, it doesn't matter who you are, that gives you something as a nonprofit for nothing, right? They give it for a good feeling. They give it so their logo will be in the right place, whatever it is. As a nonprofit leader, people give me money because they want something. And sometimes it's just to feel good, but they still want something. Right. The Imperial Court gives money to give money. There is nothing attached to it. If at the end of a reign, we gave someone $10,000 and they never even sent us a thank you letter, we wouldn't care. Right.
It is incredible. It is the generosity.
Service. It is. It's community service at its core. And that's why I joined, because I see the magic and the power behind handing a nonprofit $5,000 that they were not expecting, $10,000 that they were not expecting, and what it can do to a nonprofit, especially in the era of COVID.
Well, and also I think like here at TriVersity, we do that. We do fundraising. We do for the food pantry. You guys, Imperial Court, work with a lot of bigger organizations, but of course they need the funds. And like the Tyler Clemente Foundation, that's how I met you, Patrick. That was that event that we did at Stonewall, the Nobles event.
The Nobles show.
The Nobles show. And led by Dolores Degade, who's been on this show here.
And is also, as of Sunday, president of my board of directors at the New Haven Pride Center.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Totally adore Dolores.
She mentioned that could be a possibility when we interviewed her.
And this is really the first public announcement of it because we haven't told anybody yet. So you heard it here first
on TriVersity Talk, folks.
Oh, exactly. This is what, right, Steven? This is why we do the show. How very, very cool. You brought up something by being a member of the court. A lot of us in who we are as people want to make a difference in the world. But sometimes you just feel like it's so futile. I just sent off a $10 foundation to the Friends of Animals or one of those, and I just feel I never really get to meet the people that run the organization. Nothing, What I love about TriVersity, because we're in a small area, we are in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Any fundraising we do, you see who it's going to. It just makes you feel like you've made a difference. And with the Imperial Court, like with the Tyler Clemente Foundation, Tyler Clemente's mom was there. Yeah. This is the second event I've done where his mom was there. I got to talk to her. And it felt so good.
And let's just, because you never know who's watching the show. There might be people that don't know who Tyler Clemente is.
Okay, you're right, Steven. Right.
So who is Tyler Clemente?
So for those of you who don't know, there was a rash of suicides in the LGBTQ community, and Tyler Clemente, this is so tragic, jumped off the George Washington Bridge because his roommate outed him. He made a video of Tyler Clemente with someone. It really shone a huge light over the horrible things that can happen on social media, but also the insensitivity of one human being to another. And what that foundation has done now, they've added in, because I was talked with Tyler's mom about this, there's an anti-bullying component that is like their next platform that they're really pushing. Tyler Clemente really brought out the bullying that goes on in the LGBTQ, may I add, plus community. And I have to say the last couple of years had really brought out that bullying in such a huge way. It is something we all have to be mindful. And I'm hoping more and more people are becoming empathetic, caring, and knowing that you just don't do that. You don't do that. And I mean, he was a college student. You would think someone would be past that by the time they were in college. The fact that one human being would do that to another is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's such a tragic story. And unfortunately, it's not a unique story. And what I love about what Taylor Clemente Foundation is doing is they do a lot of cyberbullying work. They are anti-cyberbullying because they're not the ones bullying, but they do a lot of advocacy, and they really talk to people who can make legislative legal changes to things. And I went through this this past week. One of my very good friends was being bullied online. She makes her money streaming on platforms like Twitch, and people were going in and Twitch bombing her and being horrible, and she was like at her wit's end. And it's and it happens, unfortunately, particularly to queer influencers all the time, where they're like, somebody finds them and then leaks them onto some hate group, and then just people badger them until they either shut down their accounts or basically give them the bird, right? And tell them, I'm just going to do me. And if you want to sit in my comments and be an asshole, that's your choice. But
thank you, by the way, for telling Steven, did you have any idea about this on TikTok? I didn't.
Well, I have definitely heard about Twitch bombing, and I mean,
but that level of bullying, I had no idea.
The same, but remember the Zoom bombings that happened when COVID first started, and that was particularly prevalent with LGBTQ groups and centers.
It happened here in New Haven. There was a group of Yale students hosting a program about Black trans identities, and somebody entered and started throwing up swastikas and masturbating on screen, and traumatized all these like 18 to 20-year-old college students.
That would just traumatize me in general.
Yeah.
That is so, because you're not expecting it, and it's so horrible.
And the person sat there in the event long enough, like, that nobody's successes, and then just went nuts. And it was just awful. It was awful.
It's amazing to me that there's no technical way at this stage of the game to like throw them out or shut them down.
Well, the problem that there is, I mean, people have gotten a lot better about monitoring this stuff. The problem is that once a program starts, people think that, it's going to happen at the beginning, right? And this happened mid-event, and so the person who was running it for them technologically had walked away from their computer for 5 minutes, and of course that's when it happened. And so it like the person came back, and everyone had evacuated the room except for the person being the asshole. And so it just destroyed this program that was like meant to be uplifting a super minority within our community that's like the most vulnerable of violence. And like, here we are experiencing violence, right? It's one of those awful realities.
Wow.
This is why some days I just hate people.
That's good. No, you can talk about people. We talk about everything. I have days when I hate people too. You're catching me on a good day. Talk to me next week. It ebbs and flows, but I always say to myself every day. Oh God, here we go with the cliches. Every day is a new day. But you got to tell yourself that. and every day you have different feelings.
Yeah.
So this is how we get through it. But you know what? We also need the support of our community. That's why we do this show. That's why we're talking about the Imperial Court. There's so much great stuff out there. And if more people surrounded themselves with real love, not the hypocritical garbage, all right? Not the, where you are so hateful and then you go to church and you think because you went to church, you're redeemed.
Right.
You're not redeemed. People need to spend their time giving of their heart and surrounding themselves with love. So I want to just get back to the court for a minute. Your Imperial Court in Connecticut, the Sovereign Court of Connecticut, it's called.
Yes.
Okay. Sovereign. What you went from the Nutmeg Court? Tell me about that. What was?
So the history was that there was some issues within the Nutmeg Court. The Nutmeg Court existed for 5 years. And then it existed for another like 3 or 4 years after the Imperial Sovereign Court was founded. But so there was 2 courts in Connecticut for a short couple years overlap. But they were really distinct, different organizations. There are a lot of our members now, particularly our members who are founding members, were members of Nutmeg.
And we're nutmeggers. I'm
calling well, Connecticut is the Nutmeg state.
Those are the nutmeggers.
Well, that's what you call people from Connecticut, nutmeggers.
Right.
But yeah, so the Nutmeg Court, when the group left and established our court, they added the word sovereign. I think to really show that they were separate organizations, because the Nutmeg Court had the full name. Like it was the Nutmeg, but it was I think their full name was the Imperial Court of the Nutmeg, was I think their actual name. And so, or of the Nutmeg State or something like that. And so they really had to go with words that were very different. And that was where the word sovereign came in.
So how did, within the whole Imperial Court world, how did the switching of gender costuming come about?
Well, so the international court system, the original court was founded by, we call her Mama Jose. So Jose Sarria, who was the first LGBTQ person in the United States to run for public office openly before Harvey Milk. Very important. And Jose was a veteran, an opera singer, and a drag artist. And the international court system came about because essentially he was in the Castro in San Francisco and declared himself Empress One of the Americas. And that birthed the entire international court system.
This is such an incredible story.
It's why some of the oldest courts, not all of them, but most of the oldest courts are in California, because it originally started in California. And then New York was one of the first outside of California, if not the first outside of California courts. And New York is actually the mother court of the Connecticut court. So for example, we are required to go to the New York coronation ball every year because they are our mother court. It is in our bylaws.
Oh my God. In the bylaws.
There you go. Steven's impressed with that. Steven, you think we got things in our bylaws. You just heard this. Wow.
But yeah, so that's how the Imperial Court actually was predominantly only a drag society for years and years and years and years. And the idea that someone who didn't do drag joined came much later. It wasn't part of the original vision that Mama Jose had, but obviously it was an important, very, very key component of what we now know is the international court system.
To be able to dress up.
Correct. And in our court in Connecticut, we actually have 3 lines. So we have the male line, the female line, and the gender neutral line. And you do not have to fit into any of those boxes from any kind of formal way. You just have to declare yourself. So when you join our court, you join as a gender neutral person. It's the same when you run for monarch. If you run our organization for a year, you run gender neutral, and then after election, you declare if you're going to be empress, emperor, or monarch. And so that's how our court works. And you can move between the lines whenever you want. You just have to send a note to our board, and then the board says okay, and they stamp it, and then you get moved.
Wow, I just You could write a book on this. Has anybody written a book on this?
There's a documentary about Mama Jose, and there is a documentary about the international court system.
There is. Okay.
Yeah, the documentaries, I think both of them came out in conjunction with the court system's 50th anniversary, which was 4 years ago.
All right. Definitely have to make sure I check that out.
Yeah, and there's a book, there's a biography written on Mama Jose.
That's so amazing. And Mama Jose, I'm just going to assume was Latino.
Yes.
Fabulous. Everything fabulous.
Everything fabulous. And actually in New Haven, we have Yale University is one of our many. We have six higher educational institutions here in New Haven. One of which is Yale, and Yale has the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, which is predominantly books that are like hundreds of years old. But they do have a collection of the modern LGBTQ rights movement, and in that collection is actually one of Mama Jose's operas that because she would take classical operas and rewrite them. And so there is one of the scripts of her operas that was donated at some point that is in the archives at Yale.
Wow. You are just a wealth of information here tonight. Patrick Dunn, Kiki Lucia.
I like to learn. I like to know what's going on. I'm also like super nerdy in history when it comes to history. Like I can give you a whole dissertation on the LGBTQ persecution during World War II if you would like at some point. You know.
Well, begin.
or modern LGBTQ history in the United States. I can also do queer theory.
You're just like a treasure trove here. How have you wrapped everything that you believed in, like from the time you graduated from college to now, with your drag, with your advocacy? How did you do all of that?
I just don't sleep.
It's amazing. You know, I'm telling you, your bio.
Vodka is how I do all that. My thing is that, and this kind of speaks to what you were saying earlier about this idea of like, oh, I give $10 to like this big national organization. I don't know what it's doing. My goal in life is to make my corner of the world better. I can't fix the whole world, but I can make my little corner better, right? Like that's how I live my life. That's how I try to move through the world every day, is how can I make my little corner of the world better, whether or not that's giving $5 that I pulled out of my bra to someone on the street who asked me for money, to the work I do at the Pride Center, to when I get on stage. And I do a lot of political performances. I describe my drag style as somewhere between comedy drag and that style, and activist drag. And so I really blend those together, and that's just how I live my life. And I mean, you can ask my partner. I literally work 24/7. We'll be sitting on the couch and I'll be sending emails on my phone. Like this morning, I took a call from someone work related at 7 a.m. while I was, watching the morning news. Right. Like, it's just, I just live and breathe it. And it's what I do. And it's
you live and breathe advocacy. I just totally love that. And when I read your bio, I'm like, oh my God, your commitment's incredible. Do you think you are this because you are, some people give 10%, 20%. People that really care a lot, 50 to 75. You're like 150%. I mean, I saw you, exiting this room, and you told me how much money you had taken the organization from, like in a quick little flash with a whole new face. Okay, because you were Patrick, and I'm like, God damn, he is a force. It was unbelievable.
I mean, when it comes to the Pride Center, what I always say to people when they're asking me, like, well, because especially during COVID, there was a lot of these conversations like, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the reality is that the only option I have is success, because that's what the community deserves. That's the only option.
Wow.
Failure isn't an option. So I'm going to do everything that I can do. And the team that I get to work with every day, that I'm honored and privileged to get to work with every day, will do everything that we have to do to get there. Right? Like during the pandemic, there was a 4-month period where the entire staff of the center worked 7 days a week. Nonstop.
Right.
And it's what we had to do. And And yes, was it exhausting? Yes. Were we by the end of it ready to jump off of a building? And maybe that's not a funny joke, but that's like literally we were at, you know, we were all of us at one point or another over the last 18 months had a mental breakdown. Most of us more than one, right? Like just complete breakdown. And that is unfortunately the reality of doing this work in a global pandemic where nobody knows what's actually going on, right? And so what we had to do, and we learned very quickly, is you take it every day. That's all you can do. And like retrospectively, we look back and like we were having this conversation. So the center's deputy director, Juan Carlos, is also a very good friend of mine. We were friends before he came and worked for us. He also runs all of our case management. So he deals with a lot of the really serious stuff that comes in through our door. And we were telling like the story of COVID in the center to one of our attendees at one of our art openings. And we said, you know, we were so stupid because we didn't know. We had no idea, right? So we had our gala that happens every year in March, 3 days before the shutdown was announced.
Oh, of course. I just did the math. I figured. Wow.
Yeah. So our gala was Saturday. The governor on Tuesday announced the shutdown for Friday. When the shutdown happened on Friday, we stayed open for 3 more weeks to make sure that every one of our clients had somewhere to go. Retrospectively, that was the stupidest thing we could have done. And it's lucky that nobody got horribly sick and died. But at the time, we had no idea what we were dealing with. And all we knew is we have this person who's homeless that has nowhere to go, or this person has no food, or this person was just laid off from their job and can't pay their rent, right? So we were doing that. And while we were doing that, we were bringing into the center drag artists and other artists from the community and paying them to pre-record content. Because we're like, we know we're going to be forced to shut down at some point.
Wow.
So we'll pre-record stuff. And we recorded 3 months worth of drag artist story hours that we released twice a week until June. And
that is unbelievable.
We recorded, we got all these artists from around New Haven to give us art that they drew that we turned into a free coloring book, and we paid them to give it to like commission these art pieces and created this like 25-page free coloring book that we put on our website for people to download. And we started sending out emails once a week to the community being like, that were literally, how are you? What's going on? Yeah. This is what we're doing right now. If you need something, call this number. And so we did all that for 3 weeks. And then we got the email, you have to vacate the building. Right. If you are in the building, we will like drag you out basically by our landlord. And so we spent 2 days figuring out how to do virtual everything and closed our doors on Wednesday, the 25th. On Thursday, I guess it was Wednesday, the 24th, Thursday, the 25th, right? Virtual case management started first thing in the morning. And we had our first event on Zoom on that Sunday, the 28th.
Amazing.
It's like, I don't even know how we did this. I literally have no idea.
It's quite an incredible story. I love that you're sharing that here. Yes. I have not even heard a story like that. It is phenomenal. From pre-recording the drag artists to, tell me, how many clients do you service?
It's really hard to give a round number.
Ballpark of where you were at even then.
We have somewhere, like at any given time, we have anywhere between 20 and 30 active case management clients. But we also have people we have people that just come and get food or clothes or whatever from us every single week or every couple weeks. When we found very quickly that the biggest challenge Connecticut queer people were facing was food. And we along with other LGBTQ orgs across the state did a survey, and I compounded all the data and found that close to 60% of LGBTQ people in Connecticut said that they were either already food insecure or facing food insecurity by May 1st. And so what we did is we launched a food distribution program. There was one that launched a couple weeks before us in New Haven, and we reached out to them and said, we're like, how are you doing this? Tell us how to do this. And they spent an hour on the phone with us talking through how they did everything. And we literally, 3 of us would go to Costco and buy things in bulk. And then we had a food reclaiming organization in New Haven selling us produce. And then we would box up 100 to 200 boxes of food and then deliver it all over to New Haven to people's homes so they didn't have to leave their homes, all with volunteers. And we did that for 18 weeks, just to feed the community, because the schools had to stop serving food, and all these families were like, we have no way to eat. We have no way to feed our kids. We have no way, and at one point, half the people we were feeding were straight people that discovered us and then would have these brilliant moments of seeing our case manager, our director of case management, Juan Carlos, and go, I know he speaks Spanish, so I'm going to pull him aside. So my son has been doing the, is it normal that he like puts on dresses sometimes, and it was this beautiful thing.
Amazing the connection that you were able to make. Great.
And the long-term effect that's had on, we do Spanish language programming, and we have our director of case management does all of our services in dual languages. But it just changed our entire presence in the community in ways that we couldn't have even imagined at the time, and still don't fully understand, to be completely honest, because it was so amazing. And it wasn't even that we were doing anything that special. Like sure, was it special? Yes. But it wasn't like we were just fundraising money on one end and spending it on food and then shipping it out and raising more money and spending money.
But look what you were doing. It was like an assembly line, and look at all the people that ended up surviving because of it, both mentally and physically and spiritually. That is really huge. And you did it all with volunteers.
We did.
Really an incredible
awesome
story.
And it was like I turned to Laura, who's our youngest staff member at 20 now. I think she's now 24. I think at the time she was 23. And I was like, Laura, I don't have time to help you to figure this out. Figure out how we do this. And she did. And because again, it was our only option. Our only option was to do it right. And our only option was to succeed. And we figured it out.
You did what you had to do. Patrick, I want to talk about how you grew up, because I don't know, where did all of this come from, who you are?
Well, I was born in the US, but I grew up in Ankara, Turkey. So
you're Turkish.
Part of my family is, yes.
Okay.
We're a very muddy family. We have a little bit of everything in our family.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up in Turkey until I turned 18 and came back to the US to go to college, which is how I ended up in Connecticut. I went to the University of Hartford. Go Hawks.
Go, yeah, really.
But yeah, so I grew up in Turkey, and then I would come and see my dad in California in the summertime. And I honestly, I feel like I grew up on planes talking to strangers, because I would fly back and forth from Turkey by myself.
Even as a young child. So your mom was in Turkey and your dad was in California.
Yep. And
your mom is a Turkish one. Your dad is American, or
yes, it's more or less.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, we're all of us are more or less. Very interesting upbringing.
Yeah. And so I would fly back and forth by myself. Starting at 8 years old, I got on my first flight by myself internationally and flew from San Francisco, California to Ankara, Turkey, with a stop in Berlin, and learned to sit next to people on 14-hour flights and create relationships with them, because it was the only option. It was either that or sit there and stare at the seat in front of me, because this is before planes had videos and stuff like that.
The good old days.
Phones, like you could play games. Like my option was cards with my neighbor, or like coloring books, or reading.
Wow.
And so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I come from a long line of teachers. If I ever become a teacher, I think I would be a 4th generation teacher.
You already are a teacher, Patrick.
Someday, I tell my mom that someday I will become a teacher. There will come a time that I will teach something somewhere. What it is, I have no idea. But I don't know. My grandmother was extremely, my grandmother in California, who's actually my mom's mom, was very influential with me. Both her and my grandfather, they spent their lives giving back. They were both teachers. They didn't have a lot of money, and they genuinely felt like the only way to have a social life on a teacher's salary was to volunteer with nonprofits. And so I watched them volunteer and do the garden at the National Steinbeck House for my entire childhood. And I would go and help them garden once a week, and then watch them raise the money and build the National Steinbeck Center, which is one of the US's largest literary museums dedicated to a single author.
What incredible.
I watched my grandmother reopen all the libraries in Salinas, California after they were closed due to budget cuts. That was the mayor's decision, was this is how we'll save money. We'll close all the libraries. And my grandmother fought with the women's club and everybody else that she could get to stand still long enough to reopen those libraries. And even, I mean, and I use my grandmother, but all of my family has always been super invested in community building and
and helping
and giving back. It's just always
totally in your blood.
Yeah,
Well,
it really is.
Now, on your mom's side, what religion is she?
My mom is, I'm fairly certain, would call herself atheist.
Okay.
She often describes that she had the Catholic beaten out of her because she went to Catholic high school. But my baba and that whole side of my family is Muslim. And I was brought up Muslim because in Turkey, religion studies is part of the curriculum all the way from first grade through graduating high school. So I... I got a text and it was like, oh, what is it? Shout out to Tony Ferriolo, who just texted me, fabulous trans rights activist here in Connecticut. But no, I grew up with Islam being taught to me in school. The way the Turkish educational system works, which is very complicated, is essentially in elementary school, you learn basic information about Islam. Then in middle school, you spend 3 years studying world religions and compare to Islam. And then in high school, you get a little bit more in depth with things like the history and whatnot. And so I've been brought up Muslim in that sense. My family, by the most part, is more agnostic and more like, we go on the high holy days, right?
Right.
But
only the big ones.
Yeah, my family does fast for Ramadan, particularly my grandmother and grandfather on the Turkish side of my family. They fast every year. I fast most years, at least partially for Ramadan. I actually, during COVID, did my first ever full Ramadan fast. And I attribute that fast to me actually being so level-headed for the first 30 days of the pandemic, because Ramadan started, I want to say like a week or two into the shutdowns. And honestly, I think if I hadn't been fasting, I probably would have lost my mind from stress, because when you fast, you don't have energy for stress. And so it was like this incredibly calming thing that I could sit in a meeting and have very serious conversations like, what do we do if Patrick gets COVID and dies? Which was literally a conversation we had at the board level of what do we do as an organization if our leader dies, right? Because we didn't know, nobody knew how people were dying, just people were dying. And so I was able to have all those conversations because I really think because I was fasting at the time, and it really.
How long did you fast for?
So Ramadan is a 30-day fast, but it's not a full day fast. You fast during prayer hours. So so I would get up really early and eat in the morning, and then you don't eat or drink or anything until the last prayer is said for the day, and then you're supposed to do a ritual like breaking of the fast. And obviously that is hard when you can't be around people. But yeah, it was really cool. And
that is amazing how it really anchored you. Thinking about what it had to be like. And with starting with morning prayer and then fasting through the day.
I will put it out there, raise my hand and say I'm a very bad Muslim in a lot of ways. I eat pork sometimes. I don't do 5 prayers a day. I don't do any of that. I'm much more of a spiritual Muslim than anything. And I feel connected to Islam because it's what I grew up with. And I think there's power as a openly visible leader in the queer community to identify the fact that I have that cultural background, because there's very few of us in the community.
There's very few of you, and it is, I can't tell you how enlightening this conversation is, because there are so few. I have, there's a person that gives me all my clothes for the red carpets. I love him to death. And he is the first LGBTQ person I ever met that was Muslim. And there needs to be so much more about that out there, because I think the reason, quote unquote, there's so few, they're there. It's just a hard culture to come out in.
Yeah, like, and it's also a hard thing to talk about, because like I've literally disclosed it to people in a bar and had people turn and walk away from me without saying anything. And I've been called all kinds of horrible things on dating apps and things unprovoked. Like I've had people just send me slurs as their first message because I disclose that I'm from the Middle East or anything like that. Like it's the reality. And it's one of those things too, is like, I live in the invisible, in the sense of I live in a world where in white America, I am a white man and no one sees any of my diversity, which has pluses and minuses, right? But I sat on the Cultural Equity Planning Committee for the city of New Haven recently, and we were talking about like the idea of intersectionality and da-da-da. And I was like, listen, I don't expect to ever see myself represented in any shape or form of art, because I have too complex of an identity. I will never see someone who is like me in anything pop culture or anything that is art. It just won't happen. It's not going to happen. And so I've accepted that as the person that I am, that the only place that I can truly be in all of my identities at once is in my own home, where I can sit on my couch, eat something traditional that I've made or ordered, looking at my great grandmother's wedding carpet that hangs on the wall, and live in myself. That's the only place in the world that I will ever see myself actually represented, where I can see in one room traditional Muslim art, family heirlooms, and then everything else about me that is connected to my American identity. It's the only place. And that's okay. That's okay for me. I've accepted that. But it's really fascinating to me when I get to experience that shared moment of finding someone else that's queer and Muslim in the community, or queer and from the Middle East. Because even if you're not Muslim, being from the Middle East, like, I've met people from Israel that have a lot of similar experiences that can, and this happened to me very recently. And it was like the most amazing thing. I started crying after I left, where I was in a bar in Boston, and I was with one of my very good friends, Chris, who works at Fenway up in Boston. And he'd taken me to this bar, and he had two of his friends from Fenway come meet us, and they're both from the Middle East. And the three of us just kind of closed in on ourselves, and they grew up in the Middle East, meaning they grew up with the fears that I felt growing up. And we just had this like breaking apart our personal trauma conversation, drinking vodka in a bar. And I've never had that conversation with anyone ever. And I left the bar and I was just bawling, because it was like,
it's so emotional.
Have a moment like this in the
what an emotional moment.
Right.
What kinds of fears did you have?
Oh, so many. I mean,
were the fears being Muslim in America, or were the fears connected to being gay Muslim in America?
It's interesting because there's a lot of fears. I think that I fear discrimination and negativity related to my Islamic and Middle Eastern connections more than any other aspect of my identity. Right. Because being Muslim in America is very dangerous. Because, people can say it if they don't believe me, but the United States is a Christian country, and the United States is a aggressive Christian country. I get mail at the center regularly that's like, you're going to hell unless you join our church right now. Only like, and Christians are the only people that do this shit. There isn't Jews sending out these kinds of things that, like it's real. And there is, I joke about being Muslim with people all the time because I try to make it very like, I try to normalize it to people. And I like to tell people that I grew up Muslim because I think it's important for people to know, oh, I know someone who's Muslim, because it
I agree.
changes their minds. And you
but
know,
that's what we're talking about here, Patrick. The fact that it's so polarized is so awful. In our area in Milford, the most wonderful family owns our supermarket. They are Muslim, and we are in an area other than our LGBTQ community. It's, I don't want to say it, but you know where I'm going to go with it. This wonderful family, and you know what? Everybody loves them. The produce that they have, everything that they offer, and things, specialty things that you can buy from all over. We would be lost without them. And it's interesting because some of those very polarized people that would say, I don't know anybody Muslim, and Muslims are all bad. We've all heard that. It's so awful. Those people shop there and they love the owners. So what do we have to do as representatives, right, of this faith? You're doing it right now. Every time you come out, and I wanted you to share your culture here.
Yeah,
right. I do.
I just, you know, you are the visibility that you were talking about that you don't have for yourself. You're going to be that for someone else. And
exactly. And it happens. I mean, we got I got outreached from a therapist the other day, and they emailed me and they said, hey, I have a client who's going through a lot of emotional turmoil around coming to terms with their sexual orientation, and they are not ever going to walk in your door. But I told them that you're from Turkey and that you're probably Muslim, and he would like to be able to email with you from a third party. Is that okay? And it's like, that's, you know, all forms of visibility and all forms of diversity connect with different people. And that's the reality. And so being one of the people that lives in that space allows me to help someone else that, like, I didn't have that. I had no one that I could talk to about any of this stuff when I came to the United States and had this horrible culture shock of like going to college, having never seen someone even smoke weed, had never like experienced, like, Turkey is 99.9% Muslim, right? Like, and I knew what other religions were because we studied them and I did spend time in the United States, but like I had this massive culture shock when I came to the United States, and suddenly, like, I mean, when I was in high school, holding hands with your girlfriend was a big deal, right? And like, meanwhile, my roommate's boinking in the bunk bed next to me, right? Like, I had huge culture shock, and I was a massive prude and like scared of my shadow, and like it, you know, it's one of the coolest things that happens at the center for me sometimes is when we do get, because we have a lot of refugees in New Haven. We have an incredible refugee organization called Iris that's based here in New Haven. It's actually like 3 blocks from my house. And they bring in a lot. Right now we have a lot of folks coming in from Afghanistan, but we've had queer people relocate from countries like Iran and Syria, and they've come to the center, or I've found ways to connect with them through other people. And it's such a special thing because they come from a place where maybe they were completely hopeless or thought, like, you know, or they came here and they're like, okay, I'm in America, I can be safe. But then they're being shunned by everybody else that came with them, right?
It's so incredible that you are there for them. I mean, yes. The more we talk, the more I realize this is why you were put here. Okay.
I don't know if it's incredible. Like I said, I'm just trying to make my little corner of the world better.
Okay, so I want to do something because, you know, I didn't make this technical mistake at the beginning of the show. I want to play this clip, and I think that this conversation has been beautiful. So what better way to cap off this evening than by playing this clip of the lovely Kiki Lucia performing beautiful, and hopefully doesn't end in disaster this time. Here we go.
Don't look at me. every day is so wonderful, and suddenly it's hard to breathe. Now and then I get insecure from all the pain. I'm so ashamed. I am beautiful, no matter what they say. Words can't bring me down. I am beautiful in every single way. Yes, words can't bring me down. Oh no, so don't you bring me down today.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was happening there.
I
Man,
froze.
I know, and I'm like, oh, geez. Thank you, StreamYard. You've been the best tonight.
StreamYard has been the best tonight.
Well, if anybody want to watch this, it is on my YouTube channel.
Oh, yes.
Wait, and you know what? At the end, we can have you give your handles and everything, because people do need to see how great you are. I think you're such an incredible
Yes, they do. And what's it doing? For Pete's sakes, this is going to drive me insane. Okay.
I let Steven handle the technical part of it. I do a Wednesday show and someone helps produce that. This whole thing of like, Steven, I so admire you for not being afraid to try that.
Well, it's so interesting because, these platforms, when I first started doing these videos, there was a very specific way that you did it and it worked. Now they've updated it. So it starts doing things I don't expect it to do. And then when you want it to do something, apparently it doesn't work. So
yeah.
Crazy. So, Patrick, I'm going to pick up where we left off. An amazing story and the level that you're helping people on, and especially that we hit on, you come here, you're Muslim, and you're gay. Maybe you are from Afghanistan. My God, have you not been through enough? And then you come here. Who do you talk to? Where do you go? The fact that you can help those people is really, really something. You're providing like such an incredible comfort zone. And I can only think it's because when you came here, when you went to college and you said it was such a damn culture shock that you are the person, Patrick, that can actually reach out and touch them.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I just want to make my corner of the world better. I want to make it better for people who I love. I want to make it for people who I haven't met yet. I want to make it better for people who have not been born yet. That's everything I do is just to do that.
You're doing it. I am totally in awe of what you told us tonight.
Absolutely.
My God. So when did you realize that in your culture, when did you realize you were gay?
Oh, I can't remember a time where I didn't know. I mean, like at the time I didn't understand.
I can't remember a time when I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, can I look back at like memories that I have from when I was 3, 4, 5? Yes, and as an adult, say those were me having attractions to other people of my gender, right? But like at the time, I just wanted to be their friend. But I've always known forever, and it just is. I don't know. It
definitely just is. But you still have the whole culture thing, because I spent a lot of time in Africa, and I have friends that they were so how should I put it, overridden with family and what the culture was and everything. Yes, they always knew, but they didn't always know because there were so many things that overlapped.
Right.
They didn't come to the realization until they came to the United States. That's where I'm going with that.
Well, and I think for me, because I knew my plan was always to come ultimately and live in the US.
It was.
Because I had that as my goal. I knew that once I got here, I could be gay. And this like warped sense of America that I had of like, oh, that's where everybody is gay and it's all okay and nobody will kill me. And that was the vision that I had. And so that was for years and years and years, that was my sanity line of how I dealt with the bullying. And it's so funny because like, I'm so much, especially now because I've been out and gay for so long. It's like, I've been gay longer than I wasn't gay. Right. Like, and so I'm very expressive and much more feminine now than I ever was, especially now that I do drag. But when I speak Turkish, my voice still goes down several octaves. And if I'm around a bunch of Turkish people, my whole body language will change. And I can feel it change. And it's not something I'm controlling. It's part of my...
It's a reaction too.
I get it.
And it's one of the I listened to this on TikTok, this singer-songwriter the other day, and he sang this song that was dedicated to the whole queer community. And he said this line, which I'd never really thought of before, and it was like, wow, that's profound.
Right.
And he said, nobody ever teaches a queer person how to take off the mask. And I thought about this, and I was like, everything that I am, the person that I am, is that really who I am? I don't know. Do I like green because I actually like green? Or do I like green because that was the straight version of myself that I created that liked green? Do I like and it was one of these like, oh, holy shit, is my entire life a lie moment. But it's true. Like we as queer people, we create these masks and walls and spaces around ourselves where we can exist and be safe. But at no point do we say, well, let's decompress all of this trauma that created this person and connect with the person that's underneath all of the walls, all of the masks and all this thing. And the reality is that none of us actually stop and do that. And there's so many things that we probably carry for the rest of our lives until we die. We're never us.
Yeah. I always called myself a chameleon as a kid. I was like, I would take the shape of what I needed to take to feel the safest. Wow. And yeah, you never truly lose that. No. Because I can even, when I'm in certain contexts and my voice deepens, I'm like, what are you doing? But yet it's happening.
I've gotten pretty good at deconstructing it. Like I've become known for wearing I have a pin that says magical homosexual that I wear to like big meetings. Like when I went to a signing with the governor for a bill that I helped advocate for, and I'm standing there right next to him in my like super gay outfit with my pin and it's like, I don't care. I'm unapologetically radically queer. Like if you don't like it, that's your problem. But even though I am like that in my daily life, it doesn't mean that I don't still code switch, that I don't still chameleon myself in certain spaces where I need to protect my own safety, or protect the safety of other people around me. Because sometimes me being radically queer can put somebody else in danger.
Wow.
Yeah, and that absolutely. I mean, you never think about that. Sometimes, being your true self could actually harm others, and we've got to. And
I don't mean the homophobes. The homophobes, they can do whatever they want to do. But like, if I'm with someone who's not out and I'm being over the top, like, is that going to out them by accident? Those are the kinds of things that I get very conscious of.
Well, that's fair. Well, we have gone over our normal time by like 3
to another 3 hours.
And I could easily keep this conversation going, but in the interest of saving some time, so Patrick, what we like to do at the end of the show is to really hand over the floor to our guests, let them say whatever they want, plug whatever they want. Any last words you'd like to impart to us?
Sure. Well, I'll start by plugging because I don't like ending on plugging because that's very self-serving. So if you do have any interest in following me on any of my social medias, as my drag persona, I'm at Miss Kiki Lucia as everything, MISSKIKILUCIA. That's Facebook, Twitter, or no, I'm not on Twitter anymore. Instagram. I have a TikTok that I've posted on like twice. I have a YouTube channel where you can check out all my music videos that I self-produce myself with the filming happening by my very, very handsome partner who holds the camera for me. I will also be launching a talk show in the new year on there. So check out my YouTube channel.
And Patrick, what is your YouTube channel? Tell us the name of it.
It's literally just if you search Kiki Lucia, it will come up. I don't have enough followers yet to have like an actual channel yet, but someday. And then the other thing I'll plug is the New Haven Pride Center. That's newhavenpridecenter.org or at New Haven Pride Center on all social medias. And the New Haven Pride Center is Connecticut, one of Connecticut's leading LGBTQIP2SAA service organizations. We're also the state's only arts and culture organization focused on the LGBTQ plus community. And you can find us at newhavenpridecenter.org, like I said, or on our socials. And most of our programming is still virtual, so you can join us from wherever you are watching. And then as far as like actual final last words, I just want to appreciate both of you for uplifting community members and uplifting the LGBTQ experience and stories. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in, a lot of people don't want to hear our stories. Or if they want to hear them, they want to hear the trauma, because we are good trauma porn for straight people. And so I just want to uplift the two of you for being willing to uplift a voice like mine that is loud, obnoxious, sometimes radical, and maybe
I
not.
think your voice is perfect. It's totally perfect.
Amen to that.
Right? We love everything that you're about. How about that?
And go out in the world if you're watching still and you haven't turned us off, because we're now 5 minutes and 42 seconds over time. Go out into the world and do something good tomorrow that gives back to somebody. It could be giving a homeless person $1. It could be buying your friend some lunch. It could be I'm about food right now. Clearly, I'm hungry. It could be dropping off some clothes at a shelter. It can be anything. But if you do one good thing in the world, it will add up, and our whole world will get better.
Absolutely.
You are amazing, and I'm going to take a parting picture. Cheese. Cool. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We love having you. And if you would like to have some more of us this weekend, come to our Halloween party. We'd love to have you. It's a ball for all. And again, thank you. And we will see you all next week.
Yep.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.